Okay, great. Hello, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Why TMS Selection Doesn't Have to Be So Hard. My name is Ted Howard. I'm the Managing Editor of iTreasurer, a leading provider of information for corporate treasurers. I also help run several treasury peer groups for iTreasurer's parent company, the NeuGroup. For more than 20 years, NeuGroup has been a trusted thought leader for global finance and treasury professionals. We run a network of members-only peer groups covering senior-level executives, functional and regional treasury, as well as finance. We have over 18 groups cutting across sectors, several sectors, including finance, global, and regional. We have more than 450 members and 200 plus companies or so. Today, we're joined by two members of ION's management team, Alex Triplett in London and Michael Coleman here with me. They'll talk a little bit about ION and discuss how to better navigate the TMS landscape. So, beginning with you, Alex, why don't you tell us a little bit about your role at ION and a little bit about what you do.
Great. Well, thanks, Ted. First off, I just want to thank yourself and NeuGroup for inviting us to this webinar. You've been a longtime market influencer and inspirational observer of the marketplace, and we really are pleased to partner with you on this initiative. So my role is really two. At the ION Group level, I'm the corporate development head, so I look after M&A, strategy, and integration. And then within our corporate division, where we sell treasury management systems and also commodity trading and risk management systems to global corporations, I'm the CFO. So I certainly can appreciate the need for a treasury management system, looking after cash, managing risk, because I myself am in some of your shoes as well. I'm based typically in New York, but I'm here in London today.
Great. Thanks, Alex. And Michael?
Yeah, I would echo Alex's comments and thanks to the NeuGroup for putting this webinar on. Thank you for all the participants who've joined. And I am head of business development for ION Treasury. So within the ION Group, within the ION Treasury segment, I am responsible for business development. So I'm excited to talk about the topic today on RFPs because a lot of those RFPs actually crossed my desk, and I've had some I think observations that hopefully everybody on the call will find interesting.
Thank you. All right. Well, before we begin, I'd like to go over a few quick housekeeping notes. First, I encourage you to submit any questions you have using the question drop down on your screen. Depending on the volume and nature of the questions, we'll get to some, but won't get to all. But if we don't, we will follow up after the webinar. Also, an email will be sent, which will contain the recording of this session or the seminar, or this webinar, sorry, as well as the slides. So let's dig in. So I think, Alex, this one was for you. ION has been keeping a low profile in the treasury space until now. What would you like everyone to know about ION in their place in the TMS market?
Great, thank you, Ted. So we have kept a low profile as ION Treasury for a couple of years, and now it's really our time to be more of a voice in the marketplace. It's really for a couple of main reasons. First off, we love treasury. We think it's an incredibly interesting area, historically underserved and underappreciated. I think as it's grown up in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and now today. And we believe that treasury will continually grow in importance as a strategic driver of corporate health, hygiene, and ultimate efficiency. So we entered the marketplace via the acquisition of Wall Street Systems in 2011, and we've spent 7 years investing significant time and money, both organically through product development and innovation, and then also inorganically via $1.5 billion spent in acquisitions and really building what we consider now a franchise. So we have proudly 7 world-class treasury management platforms within ION Treasury. And we also have a growing host of product-agnostic automation offerings in the family as well, such as ION Bank Account Management or reporting tools such as ARC or Treasury Anywhere, and these applications can sit across the top of any one of our systems. So we want to let everyone know that we're very excited about the space. We think we have some really compelling offerings that might fit a wide variety of diverse needs. And we're excited to speak a little bit more about who we are and what we're about here today.
Great, great. So how do you manage all 7 products across Ion Treasury?
Yeah, it's a good question. Managing 7 products is something that one has to undertake with clear decisiveness. So from our view, we wanted to really accomplish a couple things. Firstly, we looked at this marketplace, and I alluded to the growing importance, and what I didn't allude to maybe is the size. So we believe that this marketplace for treasury management could be measured in the hundreds of thousands of corporations that have kind of tipped the scale of being big enough or having the teething pains to need a treasury management system. So you've got 2 or 3 bank accounts, maybe you've got a couple of currency pairs, maybe you're starting to think about proactive investment of your cash, things like that you want to start to do outside of Excel and systematize. And certainly as you grow beyond that scale, you definitely want to systematize these types of initiatives. And when we look across how large that landscape is, again, hundreds of thousands of companies, we think to ourselves, there's no one product that's ever going to fit everyone's need, right? We as corporations are all very unique. We as Ion Group are a growing company. We have certain needs. We may have different needs of a treasury system 6 or 7 years from now. We currently use one of our own. We may grow into another one. And so in our thought, 7 products makes a lot of sense because you can serve a market that needs to be uniquely served, like most of us may choose different cars or hotel rooms because we have unique needs as a consumer. So getting back to, that's the strategy of why 7 products is important to us, because we believe it fits this marketplace and fits the customer needs best, right? So allowing people to be unique in their treasury management sourcing. How do we support them? So one of the things that we do is all of the products need subject matter experts. So they all have product owners, they all have support staff, they all have development staff that focuses on that specific product and continuing to evolve the roadmap as needed. But the interesting thing about having the scale that we have with the 7 products is what you can do is you can layer on top either technology best practices such as use and reuse of integrations to ERP platforms or Swift message hubs or integrations to FX trading systems. You can do communities of best practice through initiatives to gather common teams together like professional services or development or client services. So ultimately, you can still be nimble and focused, and we invest in all 7 products, but you get the scale of being part of a larger group with a coherent strategy to say, hey, 7 products make sense. We have lots of unique consumers, and we are happy to serve each and every one in a different way.
So with what you've learned with this portfolio of products, why do you think the TMS RFP process costs more than people would think?
Yeah, I can take that one, Ted. So I think, well, let me take the second part of your question first. So as far as it costs too much, I want to make sure that everyone on the line understands that we're actually not saying challenging the RFP process as an institution. We're not saying you should do away with the RFP process. I think really what we're getting at is if we think back to what is the purpose of an RFP, right? It's to be able to establish a baseline, a comparison for you to be able to compare different products, different vendors side by side to each other. And I think what we're seeing with the portfolio of products that we have right now is the RFPs are not necessarily, I would say, the most effective way currently of providing that baseline.
Right. So it sounds like you're saying that you don't think the RFPs are providing a good comparison.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we step back a second and just take an analogy from our everyday lives. So if we think about planning a trip. So if we're planning a trip to New York City, and we need a hotel to stay in. There are 114 hotels in Midtown Manhattan. And so if I'm going to make my search based on, I want a king-size bed, I want a non-smoking room, I want a clean bathroom, I want a TV. Once I put that criteria in, I'm going to get 114 hotels that provide that service. And so that's really similar to what we're seeing in the RFPs that we're seeing right now. And so we actually have some data we can show on the screen here. This is coming from a recent RFP that we have responded to. And as you can see, what the chart's showing you is there's 3 bars. Each bar is representing the level of coverage versus the business requirements that were provided in the RFP. So in this specific example, we responded with 3 of our products: Wall Street Suite, IT2, and Reba. And what you can see from the chart here is that the bars going all the way up to the top essentially represent 100%. So across all 3 systems, nearly all 3 of them cover 95% of the requirements. So going back to, is this an effective method to create a baseline? I'm not sure how the consumer or the customer who issued the RFP would be able to take these results and actually interpret them for their needs. And so when I think about that, to me, it seems that there's a tremendous amount of effort that goes into, 1, writing the RFP, 2, issuing the RFP, then some time spent for all the vendors to respond, then some additional time spent to assess the responses, and before you know it, 6 months has gone by. A lot of effort has gone into this, both with the companies who is issuing an RFP, but also across all the vendors. To get something like what you see on the screen here, I think that there maybe is a better way to think through, and we've seen some better ways to think through this rather than generic RFPs.
We've seen similar feedback through our cross groups in the NeuGroup, and I think the main complaint is the length of time, and a whole lot of effort, long time, and often for a decision that no one's surprised by. So
exactly, and I think you're exactly right, and I have somewhat of a unique perspective because while I'm at ION, I've been at ION for a handful of years. Prior to my role at ION, I was at GM in the treasury group there. And so I have the perspective of both what it's like from the customer's perspective as well as from ION's perspective. And I think that what I see more often than not is that there are a handful of criteria that really influence the main decision, and it's not necessarily really the business requirements, which is where a lot of the effort is spent.
Right. I think we're going to go to our first polling question. And I believe the poll is open. Are we open? Poll's open? Okay. Is an RFP required in your TMS buying process? Give you about 30 seconds and then we can.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. Okay, great. That's obviously not much of a surprise. Most people have that. Alex or Michael, do you have any comment on that?
Not surprising, Ted. It's what we've been seeing in the marketplace, so it kind of corroborates what we have observed as well.
Okay, great. So let's go to our second polling question. How effective do you feel your TMS RFP process is? So again, we'll give you 30 seconds or so to do that. Okay, so what are our results here? We have most saying it's effective. 50% or 49% saying it's effective, 21% not effective, and then a smattering here of very and not sure. So again, any surprise there? Any comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's not surprising. In fact, actually, I think if maybe there's some people from the procurement teams who are on this call, I would hope that they would want to know, they would want that number to be 100% effective, 49%. So it might be higher, but it's actually just under the majority. So I think that there's certainly maybe others can appreciate that there's room for improvement, as with any process, and maybe there'll be some learnings from this webinar. Like we said, we're not suggesting we get rid of the RFP process. We're looking for opportunities to improve it.
Great. All right. So how do you propose to help corporates remain compliant in their buying process, yet reduce time and cost?
Yeah, I might take this one, Ted. So as we can see, if you strip out the not sure and the don't have an RFP process, it was about 70% of the remaining responses, and of that, 20% of 70% said either not effective or not very effective. So I would say 30% of you that run RFPs say it's not working, and then 70% of you say it is working. So certainly that's good. That's good to hear that feedback. We would counter with that. So as a company that's seen over, I think the last count was 940 RFPs across the organization in the last 5+ years. We're very familiar with the process as a vendor, and certainly in Treasury, where many of the RFPs typically follow in some form or fashion the RFP or the AFP template that Mike alluded to. But as the bar chart that Mike showed outlines, is that when you get responses back from that template, and you may say, hey, the RFPs are working for me, the responses back are, we have 3 different products out of those 7. 3 of our different products can solve 95% of your needs. So you're not really learning a lot when you issue an RFP to a lot of vendors, because most of us, including ourselves, with most of our products, can check those boxes. And so, we would kind of counter propose, it looks effective, it seems effective. Are you really learning and gaining the insights from that process in a time-efficient manner? And by time-efficient, we mean weeks, not months or quarters. So let me take a step back and give you my shoes. I'm in my CFO hat. I source strategically from our procurement team. So we have an internal procurement team. They're quite healthy. Their mandate is probably the same as your procurement team's mandate. It is save money. It is optimize supplier relationships. It is lower risk, and it is maintain flexibility and optionality at all times. Right? That's their core mandate, and they're very, very good at it. And it's a mixture of business people and legal people. And what we found is we actually run as a company less RFPs than your average company of our size. So the reason for this is we as business people, we don't want to spend 3, 5, 7 months taking our eye halfway off the ball doing system selection when we have a business to run. And so the mandate we put back to procurement was make our lives simple, but still make the same strong, robust decisions and with the same objectives in mind, just with a better process. And so what that boils down to is we were able to transmit in every system selection the essence of what we wanted. It's these 5 or 10 things. We would like 400 things, right? We're a consumer of technology yourself, right? We have a CRM, we have an HRIS, we have an ERP, we have all that stuff, right? We have our own TMS, we did our own internal system selection. We want all the same things, but we, at least for my money, don't have as much patience to go through 6 months of 500 requirements and then a bake-off of 5 people and all that stuff. I've got 5 or 10 things that really, really matter to me. And then the other things are nice to have, not criticals to have. And so the process we typically run is, let's identify the 5 or 10 business drivers we must have. Let's go then to the marketplace and identify 2 or 3 folks that can address those. And let's meet those folks and get a demo, and let's get into the crux of what this thing, this system is going to do for us. And by doing that, we tend to have in our system selection processes shortened a several quarters process, at least into a several months process. And we tend to, we think, make pretty good choices on vendors because we tend to automate many of our back office functions in a reasonably efficient way. So that's what I would challenge in terms of happiness or relative unhappiness with the RFP process. It's an institution, it's well honed, it's got a template, it's got a process. Is it the right process? And does it result in the right time-efficient outcome?
Okay, thank you, Alex. You seem to have a unique perspective on the TMS selection process. Mike, you mentioned your background includes being on a treasury team at GM. Now that you're looking at your business development across multiple products, how has this impacted your perspective?
Yeah, so I think a few things. You can see it on the screen right now. We've got I think Alex and I have alluded to boiling down your priorities to 5 to 10 key criteria. And so when we think about the portfolio of products that we've assembled with our 7 products, we essentially, as Alex alluded to, for our internal use of the treasury management system, we went through a process of selection. But I think that when it comes to pre-issuing an RFP, imagine if I were to say your RFP process today takes you 6 months, right? Which I think 4 to 6 months is probably a reasonable time. But what if I say you could probably get down to an 80% answer of who the products are that you should consider in 1 day? I think that's a pretty compelling story. And I think on a call, before anybody issues an RFP, if we were to have a conversation with a customer that says, I'm interested in the treasury management system, and my top criteria, what's most important to me, combining what's important to the business as well as what's important to our IT strategy. I think what you see up on the screen here in terms of delivery method, will this be delivered? Is the company's strategy to go software as a service, or just a cloud-based solution, or do we actually have to install in our data centers the application? That narrows down the criteria quite a bit, and the products available quite a bit. Implementation time. That's another criteria. What's your priority? What do you want to implement first? Budget. With the budget, that's a clear one and obviously a very big driver. Volumes. How much throughput do you need to put through the system? The next one is more of just a check the box. I think you want to enter into a relationship with somebody who is reputable and who's stable. You know that you're going to be around for a long time. The ION portfolio has companies that have been around for over 20 years in the space. And then finally, level of configurability. So how configurable do you want this? Do you want something that's truly out of the box? Or do you want something that can be put in place specifically for your needs across all your business units across the globe? So I think so I think I want to let me get back to kind of my perspective. I mentioned I was a GM before. So I wanted to kind of take this criteria and put it into perspective of what happened with our selection process. And maybe this will resonate with some others on the webinar. So when I was at GM and we issued an RFP for a TMS selection, I was responsible for our debt capital markets. And so this is all the issued debt from GM. And I was asked by the team running the RFP for some high-level requirements, and I gave them 10 or so key requirements that we had. The next thing I knew, and the next time I heard from that team, was they had scheduled a workshop with the shortlisted candidates. And I had no idea how well the business requirements I submitted actually fit with the products that we had shortlisted. Now, when I understood why and the rationale for shortlisting, it made complete sense to me, but it really had very little to do with the requirements. So now sitting here with my ION hat on and that perspective, I see how much effort we put into an RFP. And it just seems that if that effort isn't necessarily the driving criteria, maybe we can fast forward the process a bit and getting to that point of maximizing value, making it more effective. I think that it's a win-win for everybody.
What do you mean by different value? You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
So, for example, different value in terms of we might get an RFP with 800 requirements. But at the end of the day, the preference from, let's say, take one of the pie chart items, delivery method. The strong preference is they want a SaaS-based product, or they actually need an installed product in their data center. And so, for example, we see that a lot, and we serve a lot of the central banks around the world with our treasury product. And so, in that one, we need to know if you need something installed, then a SaaS solution like Reval, for example, is not even an option for you. So we narrow that down. I think a couple of other ones is, let's say the primary purpose of the TMS and the highest priority is I want to get a payment system up and running as quickly as possible. I'm really focused on cash. So I need to get my statements. I need to get my payments out the door. So I need connectivity to my banks, and I need to get that up in the next few months. So I want something that is truly out of the box. And that's my biggest priority right now. And so that's what I want to focus on.
Yeah, I think, go ahead, sorry, Mike. I just had a point to make. I was just going to say that what you're talking about is more, at least from a user perspective, the what do I want to do and why do I want to do it, rather than the how will the functionality allow me to do it. And we receive RFPs and it's 800 micro hows. Right? So I'm going to take a little bit of data and put it to this thing, and I'm going to take a little button and I'm going to click it and this happens, and I want this to happen. And so it's a lot of hows. It's a big list of hows. But the what am I doing and why am I doing it, those things that are super fundamental to your business, that to us really is how you boil down the essence of the 5 or 10 questions. So when Mike says, where do I want my data? Right? Am I okay with my data in the cloud? Like how is not as relevant as what am I doing with my data and why am I making that decision? Do I need to have it in my own secure servers, or am I okay on the cloud? It's so super fundamental what and why questions rather than how, which how is very important, but I think how is a vehicle to deliver what and why.
Okay. So can either one of you share some of the benefits that IAM Treasury has been bringing to market? Michael, you want to take that on?
Yeah.
Want to take that one? Yeah.
I can take that one. So benefits that I am bringing. So I would say we have 7 products. So we see that there's definitely not a one-size-fits-all, as we've said. And as a result of that, each product brings a profile of a treasury that is different from the next. And so seeing all the different profiles and understanding what works for one profile, I think the most commonly asked question, at least when I was at GM, and a number of you on the line probably asked yourselves too, is what do other companies do? And I think that the benefit that we've got with the portfolio of products that we've assembled and the portfolio of customers that are using those products is a perspective that really can't be matched, right? So if you look one way one day, perhaps you operate in 3 countries one day, but then you make an acquisition, and now all of a sudden you're operating in 40 countries. Now your profile is different, your needs are different, and I think we have a perspective of serving that variety of customers and know how they need to operate. I think also the seven platforms, the benefit also. So I think that what a number of people in the marketplace are probably asking right now is ION has purchased all of these standalone companies that offer treasury management systems. So IT2, we purchased Reval. And now we have 7 products in the portfolio, and I think some people might be questioning, well, are those 7 products going to be around? And I think that actually, yes, the benefit we see is actually having the choice, and providing customers with choice. And while we might invest from an R&D standpoint in 7 products, it doesn't necessarily mean it's 7 times the investment. As Alex alluded to earlier, we do have what we call cross-product innovation, where we can actually invest once for the benefit of the 7 products.
Can you just elaborate a little bit on that? The investment once on 7 products, or or maybe Alex, or one of you.
Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, maybe I'll take a crack at that one. So this idea that supporting 7 products is 7 times the investment. So Mike and I kind of alluded to it's not necessarily that, and it's not, because we can look at really the decoupling horizontal versus vertical, right? So horizontal being we'd like to have and we do have a growing emphasis on a common horizontal engagement with the customer. Horizontal engagement means your account management, maybe delivery with professional services, relationship, those types of things, to where really for us, if you're an Ion Treasury customer, we'd like you to be an Ion Treasury customer for life. So life means decades and decades and decades. And our businesses change and they grow and they expand and they contract and they go public and they go private and they do all sorts of different things. And as those needs change, if you've got that common face, you can always go back to Ion Treasury and say, look, my needs have changed. Really happy with the solution I chose 12 years ago, but I'd like to actually look into another one because I'm growing up, or I'm growing sideways, or I've just gone private and I've got different requirements from shareholders. And so in that way, one of the other economies of scale is the ability to deliver during system transition. So getting into another horizontal layer is delivery. Oftentimes we find that a system transition from one vendor to another can be quite time-consuming and expensive because we've got 2 PMOs, or if you have an internal PMO, a third, or if you have an external party helping you, we have 4 PMOs now. We've got to take all of the data in one system, in one type of format. We've got to keep the integrity. We've got to put it into another system. We've got a bunch of integrations that are fairly embedded in your workflow. We've got to change in integrations. There's all those types of things that we see, and if we transition one of our customers from one product to another, and we have several large instances of this going right now, it's just more seamless. And so that horizontal across both engagement and then also delivery is something that we've worked on, and we believe really brings the economies of scale to bear. We talked about vertical development and client support, because obviously there's a specificity around some of the house, so some of the functionality that each of our products provides. But there are commonality layers within development. So I alluded to a couple with Swift connectivity or maybe reporting, but another good one is user interface and usability, so UI and UX. So all vendors, almost universally, of software are going through some type of UI refresh every 7 to 10 years. So 15 years ago, we started transitioning to .NET, and then 7 years ago, people started transitioning to HTML5. And mobile has become a big trend in the last 5 years, a real trend now with real technology, not just a PowerPoint slide. And so more and more, you've got these transitions where if you do these things once, you've got to kind of learn the technology, you've got to learn a framework. It's not about what the product does, it's about maybe how to present it and deliver it. And because we've got 7 products, all 7 at any given time may have this UI, UX need, and we have a community of practice that says, hey, I'm the first mover, I've done this before, I can show you what I did, you can leverage my frameworks, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. So you get that economy of scale, but you can still maintain the integrity of what your specific product does. That's very special. And we think that's really powerful. So that allows us to have that, that nimbleness with scale that we talked about while maintaining, proudly maintaining 7 products.
Are there any plans to acquire any more management systems in the future?
The leading question, Ted. Okay, so well, we're really happy with the portfolio that we have now. I have to say, putting off my CFO hat and putting on my corporate development hat, we do know the marketplace, we think, fairly well. We do have a lot of interest in both ways, looking outward and then also coming back to us, inquiring if we'd like to buy different TMS systems that are available or may become available, or frankly, different applications or systems in and around the ecosystem. We're pretty set on what we have from a TMS point of view, but never say never. We do believe that building scale, both organically and inorganically, does matter for you on the webinar, the end customer, because ultimately we think that when you buy from a large vendor that can also be nimble and deliver across the breadth of your needs, you reduce your counterparty risk, and you also can source more, right? So we've got more ancillary tools, we've got CTRM business, we've got tools in capital markets, and so you can come and you can start doing shopping across a variety of things rather than maybe saying, well, I'll choose this for this and this for this and this for this and this for this, and maybe you have to do the integration in-house or you've got to rely on somebody, and it's tenuous at best. We can certainly provide a wide breadth of items. So in TMS, we're pretty happy, but we do receive inquiries all the time. We certainly would consider adding an ecosystem, as I mentioned, but then also where we've been most active recently with the acquisition of OpenLink, which is a combined CTRM and TMS system, super high-end commodity, I would say fitness for enterprise companies that want to deal with commodity management, physical logistics, high throughput processing needs, intense risk needs, and large positions that they need to manage. So we like that business very much, and it marries both of those businesses. And then we just bought a business called Aspect, which is a software as a service CTRM platform. So with those two, we have 4 CTRM platforms, and what we've seen more and more is growing in commodity management is interesting for Treasury, because for those of you with any type of commodity exposure whatsoever, you may choose to do it within the Treasury system, and we have that functionality available in several, or you may want to take a CTRM system and integrate the two. We can provide that as well. So we've continued to acquire different applications to serve maybe you as a corporation in a different way. But all in all, definitely inorganic growth is part of our strategy. And ultimately, it has to make sense for our customers. So we hopefully are delivering more and better selection, better delivery, better value, more diversity, more choice, those types of things. But do look for us to make more acquisitions to provide more applications to corporations in the future.
Well, thank you, guys. We're going to go to a Q&A, and we have some questions here.
We do. I'll introduce them for you.
Okay.
So first one is, what is the level of integration between the different ION products? And maybe, Mike, do you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. So I think that one way to think about this is we've got our 7 products that we keep mentioning. So the integration between each of the 7 is pretty much non-existent. And the reason for that is that each of those products serves the needs of a specific customer. So Reval, for example, serves the need of a customer who is looking for a SaaS product, and there's plenty of benefits that come along with software as a service. The local company, it fits that nicely. Trezora, for example, also software as a service, but really fits the needs of more of a North American focused company. So the integration between the two doesn't really make sense. So the choice really comes amongst the 7, and where the integration comes into play is with what we call that cross-product innovation, where we have like ION Bank Account Manager, IBAM. It's a bank account management tool, manages all of your bank accounts, all your signatories, all the documentation, automatically generates the documentation for your bank accounts. Whether you use IT2, Wall Street Suite, Reval, OpenLink, that product can work and be integrated with any of those products.
Great, thanks, Mike.
Yeah, and I would add to that one as well as Mike is right. So IBAM sits across and integrates with all the TMS products. We have the reporting application, so Treasury Anywhere can sit across the product. CTRM integration, so we have connected now several of our TMSs with TriplePoint and are on the road to connecting some with Aspect, and then OpenLink itself is a joint Treasury commodity trading risk management. So the nice thing is we have definitely a lot of connections on a horizontal application, and then CTRM to TMS, we have several instances. We don't have all-to-all right now. We have several to several, and the reason for that is it's really customer-driven. So if you were to select a menu of what we have and say, well, I really like this, and I really like that, and I want them to talk to each other, all of our products feature open API, and of course, both development teams being in-house, they're very friendly and collaborative, and they're very quick to integrate, and it's fairly seamless because we want to emphasize that as a point of differentiation as well. To the extent that you go shopping with us and you find certain things and you want them to talk to each other, we make that happen for you. The interesting thing that is what we've been thinking about more and more is community. So we have about 1,200, over 1,200 Treasury customers today. And many of you may be thinking about things you do on the other side of the house where maybe you hedge and you trade futures, or you need to execute FX. And we have tools on the capital market side that allow you to do those things. And the obvious is once you make a trade, you need to book. For Treasury commodities management, those can typically be the booking system. You'd like those trades to slide right in, or those movements you make to slide right into your TMS or your CTRM. And we've started to make that integration on the CTRM, and we'll do that further on the TMS as well. Again, typically customer-led, because we want to hear the voice in the market telling us what integrations really matter. But the last thing I'll mention about community, and hopefully someone can queue this question up, is data. So the interesting thing that we'd like to provide as a service as well is we want you to learn from your peers. And this is really about just best practices, benchmark. So how fast should I be at this? And how much of this should I be doing? And how little of that should I be doing? Really, it's not specific data. It's really kind of benchmarking and best practices type of community data that I think we all might wonder. Are we best in class in terms of closing the books, or number of payments per month, or how we trade FX? Are we how do my peers rate versus me? So those are some of the things we're thinking about in terms of community being really interesting. And again, across 7 products, you see a wide variety across the curve of complexity of corporations. So some of us are middle-sized international corporations. Some are very big. Some are very focused. Some focus on certain regions. We all may be in different industries. So that's an interesting area that we've been focusing on as well. And again, this is the voice of yourselves we've been hearing back as an interesting area to focus on.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you. So, Alex, here's one for you. While ION's portfolio of TMS systems is quite impressive, as the company has pursued a very thoughtful business development strategy, what are ION's ambitions as it relates to its ongoing customer support model?
Be the best. So our ambitions on customer support are, I think all companies that have a service model and delivering software, by definition, you need to deliver service. I think all of us at all times need to be very, very focused on being the best that we can. And for our money, we are certainly on that journey, and we would like to just continue to get better and better. And that means, firstly, being able to handle inbound requests very quickly, very efficiently, and close things out. That's number one. Number two is, I would say, nurturing a deeper relationship to not just understand how to solve an issue that comes in that day, but really understand your business, right? So how are you transforming? What are the things that matter about your business? How is our TMS helping you, or really maybe not actually looking after you as well as it could? And not to steal Mike's thunder, but Mike has really focused on this in the last 3 or 4 years with some customer initiatives that he leads, where he really looks into how are we helping automate your processes, right? Beyond just answering the issues day to day, which we'd like to get faster and more efficient at. And then for several of our products, such as Wall Street Suite, to name one, and OpenLink and Reval, we have self-service portals to where what we believe is valuable for yourself, like we receive in our consumer lives, is many of the things that you might want to ask can be answered immediately through self-service. And what we really care about is making sure that you get a response and an answer to the first level of items very quickly. And so we've started to roll out more self-service portals. Again, this is a horizontal framework, so we see what it looks like with one product, we start to roll it out, we start to improve, we start to understand how we can be best in class there, and we continue. So I would say over the course of the next couple of years, this is an extreme focus for us, customer service, as well as quality and speed of delivery, building community, publishing benchmarks and best practice. These are the areas that we really wanted to focus our time now that we've built the franchise. So it's a very pertinent question, and my answer is focus on customer support. It's number one, and we would like to continue to improve.
Yeah, and I would also add to what Alex said. I mean, I think our number one focus is making sure that our customers have maintain business continuity. So we have this we in our hosting platforms, we have backup facilities to really ensure that if there is an issue, that we can stand up the backup process very quickly. And also, so I think that's kind of business continuity is really important. Alex had alluded to an initiative that we have started a few years ago, really to try and understand how our clients are using our products. And at one of our user group meetings, one of our clients actually had said, it's not that we don't want to use more of the product. What we want to understand really is how can the system that we're using actually maximize value to us? And I think that question really has resonated and really propelled this program forward in really understanding, well, why is the system not being used the way it's intended to be used? What's changed from the time you initially implemented the system to today? And where are those opportunities? And what we're seeing is there's a significant amount of low-hanging fruit to really maximize the value, as one of our customers had said, without really any significant investment or any investment at all.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. Next question. Let's see. There's a lot coming in, which is great. So we'll keep going for as long as we can. Does ION help companies build a business case that focuses on output, including value of outputs, possible with current spreadsheet-centric systems? And I think that kind of leads in nicely to our ROI Calculator tool set. Maybe Mike, if you can comment on that.
Sure. So, as Leslie mentioned, we have what we call our ROI Calculator, which really helps you, whether you are in the market for a new system, you are trying to justify an upgrade to your existing system, or just looking for additional value that you can bring from the system. We have a tool that we work together and allows you to really identify and try to really quantify. Some of these items are sometimes difficult to quantify the value, especially around controls. The controls and the audit capabilities that the system brings. It's hard to put an ROI number on that. But our calculator really is a tool to help bring out those benefits and help our customers, or even potentially new customers, help justify their business case.
Well, I would also weigh in, and Mike's right, because the ROI calculator is really interesting during the this business case building to get to the end state of your system selection, and it's a powerful tool, and I think we'd be happy to host another webinar with NeuGroup and to talk through the ROI calculator at some point. I think it's really interesting. But the other thing that I think is interesting that the question invokes is maybe for existing customers. So if you're, as Mike alluded to a couple of answers ago, if you're using the system and you still find yourself doing some things outside of the system in spreadsheets, and we are all guilty of it. We are a vendor ourselves. We use our own internal systems. We use many systems from third-party vendors. We still do things in Excel because it's easy, it's lightweight, it's intuitive, but it's unsustainable, and it's kind of a system and a process, but there's all sorts of risk and control issues and all sorts of other things, data integrity and the like. And we often audit ourselves, and we go through and we ask ourselves, why have we not systematized this way of doing something? Why are we still doing things in an ad hoc way? How can we leverage the power of automation to just improve our lives? And we engage in the same way. Typically, we have the two models. So we come in and have a discussion over the course of a day and understand your use of the system and how it can maybe expand or contract or refocus or whatever it might be. And that's typically just a customer service we provide to our customers. And then there's a second model where you may say to yourself, I'd like to engage Mike and team to actually come in for maybe a couple of days with multiple people to engage my entire organization and to really understand my business end to end, not just my area or my treasury area that I'm focused on now, but to go across and look at from funding to cash management to risk to all the other areas that you have. How does that integrate with accounting? How does that get involved in procurement or strategic sourcing? And we'll go through a fuller engagement and do a more robust what we call process analysis or audit and present those results back to you. And those would really consider the output. So I think it was well said, whoever asked the question. So how do you think about the output, right? I'm trying to do something. I'm trying to produce X. I want to leverage the system to do it. How can you help me do that? So we ourselves wrestle with that. I think if you want to produce a business case, you can help use our ROI calculator, and that's for system selection. If you want to think about how to optimize current state with a treasury management system, we've got a light touch and we've got a heavier touch that can help answer that question as well.
Super. Thanks, guys. Maybe we'll take one more question and then start winding down here. So this was asked specifically about Wall Street Suite, but I think we could answer the question for any of our platforms. Are investments or solutions rather, are investments or acquisitions foreseen in areas of robotic process automation and automatic testing?
So great question, actually a very topical one. So I think there are a number of articles out in the press that allude to robotics and the role that robotics play in the treasury market. And certainly we are not blind to that. And actually I think when it comes to our level of investment, one of the things we had mentioned is, well, yes, we have 7 products, but we don't necessarily always have to invest 7x, right? But what we do is we have a pool of resources to be able to actually reinvest in items like robotics, in new technologies that are emerging for payment, in terms of open banking, blockchain technology and its relevance in the treasury space, and this really expands beyond just Ion Treasury, but to different parts of the Ion group, such as our Lab 49 business, which really serves more of the capital markets, but is working on some new initiatives to really drive the industry forward. So yes, we are excited about the new innovations that are trends that you're seeing in the market, new pilots, and we would look to participate in some of those and already are.
Yeah, and I would say on the automated QA, so the end of a development cycle, I want to say 6 years ago, we really shifted our development methodology, as many vendors do, from a waterfall methodology to an agile methodology. And one of the prerequisites really for getting your house in order to do that is when you form Scrum teams in an agile methodology, you're putting developers into the entire cycle. And so not only are they building code, but they're testing code. And you can certainly test code much faster if you allow a machine to do automated regression testing. And so we've put in place those practices. And again, Mike and I have talked about it a number of times. They're horizontal practices where we have best-in-class regression testing. We try to automate as much of our testing as possible. And that's a key KPI to measure development effectiveness across the group. And as Mike had also alluded to, this spans broader than just the 7 treasury products. We look across the entire group where we have several thousand developers, and we're constantly trying to push on that area because ultimately that allows us to deliver much faster. And the beneficiary is obviously yourself, the customer, if you're receiving updates and releases that are either faster or just more, because we're able to test more and therefore cut down cycle time and sprint times or increase the amount of story points or user stories onto a sprint. So pertinent question is Mike said, RPA I think is future, and regression testing and automated testing and development methodology is current state.
Yeah, and I would just add one last point, which is that I think just like any company, we are always looking to try and do things better. We're trying to do things faster and do things cheaper. And we have changed our process with regard to actually Wall Street Suite and some others over the last couple of years so that we can actually leverage the automated testing that we do have in-house. To make that available to customers is a potential area that we have been exploring and see the value in doing that too. And so I think from when we look at ION's values, our values really around automation, right? Bring automation to the market where it makes sense. And that's what we pride ourselves in.
Okay. I think that's it. All right. Well, Michael, thank you very much. And thank you, listeners, and Alex in London. Thanks very much. And again, participants will get an email with a link to the recording and the slides. So again, thanks very much, and we'll see you soon.
Great. Thanks, Ted.